Hey, 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 welcome to this episode of the Unlearners podcast. It's myself, Zanele Njapa, the unlearning lady, saying welcome to the space of unlearning, challenging who we think we are, and really giving birth and rise to the new version of ourselves. Today, I'm having a conversation with someone who's super close to my heart, and I can't resist the smile. You know, every time I see you, I just want to smile. So I can't wait to have this conversation and delve into not just your journey, but also what you found have been some of your biggest unlearnings. And I also want to delve into the space that you're in. So maybe to introduce this conversation to the unlearners that are both watching and listening to this, the guest I have as part of the Unlearners podcast today goes by none other than Carol Ofori. Now, Carol is and I was asking you this if you're okay with me calling you a media personality, but she is an award-winning international voiceover artist. And I will never forget, because I listened to the station where you are currently quite a lot, and I remember them announcing that you'd won that award, and I was like, yes, because I love you so much, and I still do. And I think the journey of watching you just unfold has been so beautiful to watch and to witness. And I hope that today, as we have this conversation, the unlearners who are a part of our community will get to not just receive inspiration from your journey, but also maybe get some tidbits around how to stay purposefully centered as they evolve. And I know that that's a big part of especially your keynote speaking as well.
The Unlearners. Learn, change. Learn, change. The Unlearners. The Unlearners. The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow.
So, to officially welcome you, welcome Carol to the Unlearners podcast.
Thank you, Zanel. I'm excited to be here. You know, I enjoy our conversations. So for the first time, we're going to do it now in public. Normally we have our conversations in private. So
behind closed doors.
Right.
Where no one can hear anything. Thank you so much for making the time. I'm so grateful to have you here, because I know that there's going to be so much resonance with our unlearners around not just you and who you are and what you do, but also what you're going to share and the perspective that you're going to share it from. So maybe let's go all the way back and just talk about, and I love it when you share about this, so I'm going to ask that you share it with everyone. Little Carol. I want to hear about little Carol. Who was she? What were some of the things that defined you as an individual, as a person, back when you were growing up?
I think, you know, growing up, I guess I was the one that gave my mom a lot of heartache. She's sitting here. And I think it was because I was just always outspoken. I always went against the grain. I never did what everybody else did. I was the loud mouth in the class, the one who's doing the jokes and the teacher's teaching. I'm the one who's like, bring your homework, I'm back. I'm going to write to your mom and tell her how you disrupted the class the whole time. And I've just always been like just out there, loving drama, loving the stage, loving speaking. And funny, growing up, when I first started reading, I wasn't such a good reader. And it's so crazy now that I'm an adult and I read a lot of scripts. It's become so second nature. But growing up, it was one of those things that was like, it used to give me like like reading out aloud to people. But yeah, you know, young me was just an ambitious little girl who I really enjoyed the stage. I enjoyed expression. I hated conformity. I just knew that whatever my life was going to be, it was going to be in color.
Okay, so one thing I do want to say to our unlearners especially, one of the things that we do as a team is we put together guests that we know have something phenomenal to say. And we don't script our conversations. We might have key questions that help you to prepare, but I always find somehow that the big idea comes through in the conversation. And there's a word you used. You said expression. And I feel like that's sort of what's going on here. And I want to go into that. What do you feel, and you can touch on your journey because you have so much there. What do you feel is the value of being able to express? And maybe even touching on some of the unlearnings that people have to go through in order to be able to express themselves. You work with your voice all the time. All day.
Every day.
And I think we had the conversation about insuring our voices once.
Yes, we did.
Oh my God, this is my check.
Right.
So talk to me about expression.
Yeah, I think expression is so important to one's full being, right? How you express yourself, how you allow others to see you express yourself is also important. I think for me, as a young person, I just always just wanted to be heard, but wanted to be heard my way. So it was never, the conventional way. It was always my way. So, for example, for me, my biggest form of expression was being on a stage. I loved the plays. I loved the debating. I loved reciting my poetry. It was my way of showing who I am and who I, was at the time. And I still use that today. Sometimes I think doesn't mean if you're expressive, you don't have your moments of recluse, right? And your times of just being by yourself. That is also a form of expression, in being in your own, space and enjoying your own time and allowing yourself to be okay with being a recluse. Because I do, sometimes I go out and people expect me to be loud and on the stage or whatever. And in that moment, just like a rainbow, the color for the day is just not it. Today I just want to chill, leave me to be calm. And then people will be like, but you normally and expression comes like a rainbow, if I had to put it. There's different colors to it. There's different time for it. And there's different place for it. Just like the different colors of the rainbow. Yeah.
So how have you seen, and maybe to stick to that analogy, where are we now? Where is Carol now in terms of her color? What color are you on now? Maybe looking at the stage or the color that you were in maybe just a year ago, or maybe that you're moving out of.
Yeah.
What does that look like at the moment?
Well, I think for me right now, what's been a beautiful journey is that I've just always tapped into different things that speak to my creativity. So 2 years ago, I wrote the children's books, which was a space that I was in creatively in, taking kids on an adventure. And then, now I'm in this radio space that I've been in for a long time, but working on different brands throughout my career and finding myself having to find my feet in a new environment, having moved to Durban from Johannesburg and finding that different rhythm. And then, of course, I'm a mom to two small children that require a lot of love and attention, and you've also got to color in that element of life. So I find that every day is so different. I wake up sometimes feeling like I'm chasing the stars and the moon, and then I wake up some days and I'm like, you know what, it's okay to just be chilled today, and we're just gonna have a chilled day, put on our socks and watch some TV. So it varies, moments, days, opportunities for me. I hope I'm making sense, but this is the color rainbow in me
it's
coming
happening
out
right
now.
now.
Yeah,
In season 1, Carol, we had an episode, and I strongly encourage our watchers and listeners to have a look at this episode.
Yeah.
And it was titled around non-conformists, that unlearners are non-conformists. They're the people, just like you, Carol, you sit in a classroom and go, ma'am, I don't think that's quite, I'm seeing something else. Is that okay? I used a different method, but I still got to the answer. Those types of people.
Yes.
But this is where I want to go. And just now when you were responding, you mentioned all of, I'm going to call them boxes intentionally, of your life that you fit into. When it comes to being able to express your non-conformism, how do you do it in a box? Because I'm going to be super honest with you, Carol. As someone who has shifted in a specific part of my private life, and I won't mention it, but I'm finding that there's a lot of conformism, because when I stepped into this stage of my life or phase of my life, people went, okay, so this is how you dress. So then this is when you come over, this is who you cook for, this is, and I think just by saying that, people will sort of understand what's going on. But I was told, and you almost get into the balance between legacy and innovation. So how would you say, how do you express yourself in an environment where there's so much legacy going on and very little room for, okay, let's hear it. Let's hear the great idea and implement. It's more,
stay in your lane.
How do you do that? How do you find that balance?
Look, I think with the different hats that I wear, they require a different level of diplomacy, if I can use that word. For example, as a mom, there's certain conformist ideas that a mom should do. So a mom doesn't go partying with her friends and leave her kids at home with a nanny. That's like, bad mom.
Yep.
But you know what? Me, I go partying with my friends. I have a very amazing nanny who steps in and she's there. So I make time for myself. There'll be times I go out and people are like, oh, if you out here, like who's with the kids? Mind your business, lady, and live your life, right? So it's about taking ownership of what makes you happy, because at the end of the day, we would love to make the world happy, but in doing so, we'll never ever end up living our own dreams and fulfilling our own desires, right? So in the mom space, I'm always doing what I want to do. If I want to take myself out on a Sunday afternoon, which usually I make lunch for my family, but I go, no, I'm going out, I'm going for massages and I'm going for cocktails. Bye. I do that, right? I do that in the space of my work, right? I don't allow myself to fit into boxes because the station or the brand says we want to do this. See, if that doesn't fit in with what I want to do, I'm not doing it. So we either reach a compromise of you accept I'm not going to do it, and I'll respect the fact that because I'm not doing it, there's a consequence. That's fine by me. But I'm not going to allow myself to just tick boxes because you say I must tick boxes. Because I think if I did that, my 20-year radio career wouldn't have been. I would have been squashed all those years ago working for a different radio station in Johannesburg. But I always knew that I wanted to do more. And if in order to do more, I must not allow others to dictate to me how that more looks, right? So in the same breath of like, I'm married, I've got an incredible husband, he is Ghanaian, I'm South African, there's cultural differences. There was no way I was going to reprise my culture because of his culture. And that was something that was very clear from the get-go. You don't have to be rude, you don't have to be arrogant, you don't have to be abrasive about it, but it's something that my in-laws celebrate about me, that I love who I am and what I am and how I show the world to be. So it's ownership. It really just is ownership. And ownership doesn't have to be rude. It doesn't have to be abrasive. It doesn't have to be, right? It doesn't have to be dismissive. Ownership just means I own who I am, and this is it. This is it. You take it, you leave it, but it's not changing. And if it changes, it's because I'm learning something from that change. I'm not going to change to learn that I actually don't like the change.
Have you ever been to one of those retreats that when you come back, you feel like, oh my goodness, I'm a different person? Well, the unlearning experience is exactly one of those. Because if you go to the unlearning experience, you're not just experiencing a transformation retreat. You are literally taking 3 beautiful days, gifting them to yourself all the way from Friday up until Sunday, experiencing master classes that are powerful, workshops that will engage you. You are creating your journey and purpose for the coming year, taking stock of the year you are closing off. If you're someone who's transforming, the unlearning experience is for you. It's one of those retreats, and I'm not just saying this. This is the feedback we've received from previous retreat attendees, that the unlearning experience is life-changing. And so if you're ready for life-changing kinds of results, you're going to make sure you've got your ticket to the unlearning experience. Would you say that our purpose then plays a great role in anchoring us? So let's say, for example, I have decided to take ownership in a certain situation. Hey, this doesn't quite align with me. I'm not quite going to do it. So sorry, guys, this is just what I've chosen. Where do I find solace? Where do I find my strength in that situation? Especially because, and this is the thing around human beings, and you know this so well, Carol, that human beings are social before they are reasoning, before anything else. We just want to survive. And survival often means being part of the group, conforming, just doing what you need to do so that you have a salary and you don't die. So when all of that happens, we're often thinking, oh my goodness, I'm going to be isolated from the people who I presume to be my tribe. Where do I then pick up it's okay.
It's okay.
It's fine. I know that now maybe I've got a few backs turned on me, but I'm going to continue to express, like we said, and non-conform on the basis of what can we hold on to in that situation?
Look, like you mentioned, I think everybody, we go through life with partners, we go through life with associates, that you go through life either soundboarding off or, feeding off ideas, etc. And I think it's so important that in making these decisions, it's not made completely in isolation, right? So, for example, if you are, like in my case with my husband, when he met me, he knew the colors of my rainbow. He knew who I was. He knew my expressiveness. He knew all those things. So when we entered these territories, it was not foreign for him to see me saying, I'm not comfortable, I'm not happy with. These conversations were happening, and I had the support of him to go through this process, And the same with, motherhood. I know that I'm doing good for my kids. So I don't need any buy-in from anybody else. These two little people are my responsibility, and I need to answer for them. So in seeing that I'm doing the right things for them, that's all the peace and the happiness that I need. In my workspace, the fact that I can get up every day and go to that place with a smile on my face and enjoying what I do, I know that that decision was right. It is the moment I don't do that, I feel like I'm in the wrong space, I'm wasting my time, I'm not happy, then I know I've done the wrong thing. So in certain spaces, you'll need physical companionship, and in other spaces, you just need reassurance for the decisions that you've made that will reinforce that you're doing the right thing.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's very practical.
Yeah.
Carol, do you have anything else then that might be I won't say a tick box, but maybe part of a checklist? If someone goes, okay, I'm ready to step out and be maybe a little bit more expressive, whatever that means for them. So companionship, I love that. And a tribe is actually, so you almost use the idea of social change, but in a way that supports you. So I like that. Is there anything else that you would practically say if you are finding your voice right now? This is something that might be really helpful on that journey.
Look, I'm extremely spiritual, so I'm rooted in Christianity. I think for someone like me who's in that space, and if you are in the same space, it's important to center yourself and be alone with your maker and let that voice guide you, right? It's a space of complete silence. It's a space of vulnerability. It's a space of self-reflection. It's a space of understanding that you are not here by accident. You are here for a reason and a purpose. And once you allow yourself the wholehearted empowerment of listening to yourself inside, what makes you happy? Am I really, when I go out and I be around these people, am I happy? Do I enjoy the energy that I have invited myself into? Am I in a work environment that is fulfilling me? And if all these things are saying, then you got to center and find the time and the space to say to yourself, I deserve more. And I can't give the world any more if I haven't given myself more. So it can be hard at times, but you've got to remind yourself that there's nobody else that's going to do it for you. Not your mother, not your father, not your kids. If you do not do it for yourself, you're on your own, and that's it. Yeah.
What would you say are some of the greatest unlearnings that people are needing to do around this? And maybe you can even touch on some of yours. What are the roadblocks, the walls that have been created either in our minds? And I mean, I feel like that's where they all start.
Yeah,
right?
they do. They do start in our minds. Unfortunately, we live in a country that will remind you that you're different, right? So you're black, you're female. You'll be reminded by these roadblocks that can either stop you from excelling and doing your best, or you can use them as ways to propel yourself forward, which you really have to think outside the box and jump a bit higher than everybody else has you jumping, But I think if I had to think of other roadblocks, it's just not taking the time to listen to you. Yeah, I think we're so easily swayed. We're so easily reminded that you're not good enough. Someone else is prettier. Someone else is smarter. Someone else is richer. Someone else has better friends than you. Someone else, the world will constantly remind you of that. And you have to make it an intentional mission to remind yourself that you're not those things. Because like I said, nobody else is going to do it for you. And yes, you'll have bad days where you believe everything the world says about you. Yes, I'm terrible, I'm broke, I'm this, I'm that. You believe it. But once you get up the next day and that sun rises, so should your positivity and your love for yourself. Yeah.
I think I like what you said because it speaks to how a lot of those are socializations that we are socialized to believe over time.
Yeah.
And I often say that these deep-seated beliefs come in different ways.
Yeah.
And some of the key ways could be because they were said by someone that you trusted. And it was easy to believe.
Yes.
And these are people like parents, people like teachers. And the other way is when they're repeated.
Yeah.
Because when something is said often enough and you hear nothing contrary to it, to challenge it, then it becomes an absolute truth for you. And there's so many other ways, and that's what I'm hearing from what you share, is that these start to become absolute truths for us. Just because we've been socialized to believe those things. Hence, the journey around unlearning then is about building that self-awareness. And that comes from the stillness, that comes from the quiet, lowering the volume on all the other voices that are speaking to you constantly, whether they're in your head or outside your head, and then listening in. Do you feel, Carol, that a lot of us already have a sense around our truth, but we don't think we do? Because I get a lot of people go, no, I don't know my purpose. I don't really know what it is. Do you feel like there is a knowing there, or is it something that people have to discover? Do I need to go hike and sit on a mountain for 3 days and then I'll go, oh, I hear something. It's my purpose.
Right.
What do you feel that's about? Where do we stand with it?
I think a lot of us look for one purpose. And then that's where we get thrown off. We feel like it should be one thing, one thing. And I think there's more. There's a whole lot. I never thought in a million years I'll be sitting here, and I've written children's books that are sitting on shelves around the country and around the world for that matter, because it's available on Amazon. Never would I have thought that. But is that my purpose, to have written the books? No, it's one of them. It definitely is one of them. I do feel that was a God-ordained project. Every step of that project was not about me. It just happened to be coming together and listening to what needed to happen in those moments. So I think there's so many things. There's so much to life. It's more colorful than just one purpose. And once I think we stop putting it down to one, we'll start appreciating more, whether it is, becoming that runner, it's a purpose as well, because geez, I tried running. It's not for the faint-hearted, but to be able to put your mind and your body in a condition to be able to go for 30 kilometers at a certain consistent pace, at a certain consistent heart rate is phenomenal, right? It's phenomenal. But for someone who does it all the time, it feels like, it's just something that I do. But it's phenomenal. So I think it's not putting it down to just one thing. And I just also want to highlight something, in the industry that I work in, we often are just because of where we are, we judged. Everybody feels they can tell us, where we belong, how we look, how we sound. Oh, your voice is irritating. And so you kind of have to unlearn the process of hearing so many voices unsolicited, right? And that's something that was very hard to learn on, my journey in this business. But as I've gotten more stable in what I do and owning what I do and really rising to the occasion, it's gotten quieter and quieter and quieter. And I mention that because with anything new you start, there'll be loud voices. And as you own it and as you come into it, the voices will start getting quieter and quieter and quieter. It's not that they are gone. It's just that you are owning more of it. So when you start something new, it's going to be hard. There's going to be lots of voices, But ask anyone who's done something new and exciting and chasing their purposes. They'll tell you that, it was hard. My family didn't think I'd make it. Finances were tough. I lost my job. I was on the floor. I was this. But as they keep going, the voices get quieter and quieter and quieter.
But it's that initial part, right? Where you're still building the habits and there's a higher chance of backsliding back into what you know. That's the part that's the trickiest. No, you're quite right. I like that. Thank you so much, Carol. Unfortunately, we've run out of time.
I know, time is awful.
We can just go do coffee.
I owe you coffee, by the way, so yes.
Definitely it's happening. Thank you so much for your time. This has been such a blessing. You are just such a beautiful human being in everything. You're so aligned, and I like that you've literally aligned what you do, what you've learned into what you now share with individuals, the stories that you tell, the narrative that you're all about, that being purpose driven
Thank you.
and aligning that to everything, especially to transformation. So I love it. I love how you sort of found this made it all work. So it's absolutely great. So thank you, Carol.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
It's been such a pleasure. All right. Thank you so much, Unlearners, for engaging in this podcast episode. This has been just everything. I feel like I'm going to go back to this one and I'm going to watch it again for myself because it was just that good. I hope you found this episode to be everything and so much more. Please remember that wherever it is that you are, you've got the option of taking accountability with your voice. Use your voice, express yourself, whatever it is that you are feeling. Remember that conformism is only because you and I don't want to die and we want to fit in and survive, but there's also life on the other side of ownership of your voice, and Carol has taught us and spoken to us about exactly that. All right, Unlearner, sending you lots and lots of hugs and wet kisses. Thank you so much for tuning into this episode of the Unlearners podcast. It's been a pleasure hosting you. It's been myself, Zanele Njapa, the Unlearning Lady, and we'll see you on the next episode of the Unlearners podcast. Bye for now.
The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow. Learn, change, grow. The Unlearners. The Unlearners. The Unlearners. Learn, change, grow.